Thanks for coming tonight. We set up just a half hour as a quick informal kind of question and answer session. We want to be able to have one of these in every town like we used to be able to do when it was on town meeting day. We'll have our formal information meeting on April 25th at MVU. So feel free to join us there. I believe actually the presentation that'll be shown on April 25th is one of those printouts that's over here if you haven't gotten one.
A little bit more abbreviated.
A little more abbreviated, yeah. And then the one-page flyer that hopefully you've received in your mailbox, or maybe
Friday.
Friday? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess I'll just start and ask if anyone had specific questions they came with tonight.
Why isn't the big meeting at Franklin?
You know the answer to that, Kim.
I'm just saying we should share the love.
Yeah, we'll be at MVU for that. I am happy to say that our routine meetings will be at the elementary schools more often this year than have been scheduled in the past. So I am pleased that we'll be touring around a bit more. So that's nice. I guess without specific questions, I'll just highlight kind of the approach we took and what the key priorities were in putting this budget together. You know, obviously you've noticed that the total spending is up, but the tax rate is down, which seems a little odd perhaps. But I'll just talk about the spending part first in terms of where we were investing and what our goals were. We had put out a community survey, oh boy, a number of months ago now, back in November. And the themes we saw in there was really asking what the community wanted as priorities for the school, what they thought we ought to be focusing on. The two main themes that really popped out were an emphasis on retaining high quality staff and investments in our facilities to make sure we're having proper maintenance and upgrades. And so that was one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of this are the board and district goals that we've established for ourselves, and two of the key ones there are increased proficiency for our students, also improved post-secondary outcomes, which kind of comes along with the increased proficiency over time, and reducing our teacher turnover. So again, pretty in line with what the community had asked us to prioritize. And so the increases we see in this budget from a spending perspective really hit those three areas. We continue to increase kind of incrementally the amount of money we're putting in the budget for facilities upgrades, improvements. We've got old buildings at this point. MVU's over 50 years old. It's a big building, a lot to do there. Highgate has the white building that really is kind of an end of life, and Peter can probably talk about that more. He's on the facilities committee, but we need to be planning on that. You know, Franklin's got some smaller projects that we've got slated for next year, just some efficiency upgrades, and we're reviewing, we've got some planning dollars in for a potential space increase to uncrowd that preschool music room that is shared, so hopefully that will be able to work out. We also have increases to salaries in here, which is trying to get after that, attracting qualified new hires, as well as retaining some of our professionals who have been here for a while. We know, you know, we're putting a lot of, it's beyond just the salaries, we're putting investments in professional development for these teachers, and if we're training them up and then losing them, we're really losing out, and we're getting them early before they're highly skilled and then they're gone, and so we need to try to be able to keep them for extended periods of time. And the administration knows that there's a lot more to keeping staff than just the pay rate, so there's work being done on that side of things as well. And finally, the biggest piece is what's called our recovery plan, which we're going to have a review of in our meeting coming up here in a little while. I think there's a little over $1 million in the budget, or around $1 million, Julie?
I would say just under.
Just under?
That's in the budget. We certainly have more than that that's in our grant proposals, but those are mostly temporary kinds of things. But in terms of things like, there's a truancy person that we hired this year, covered by a grant. It's proposed to be in the next session of the grant. this person is doing a lot of data collection, finding out why kids are not coming to school, but also then working with families to engage kids and work with administration to change practices, just to keep kids in school. It's been a very tough couple of years with kids not attending for a lot of reasons, and we understand many of them, but that's an example. We hired a social worker using grant money, but again, the budget has two sides, right? You have the expense side and then you have the revenue side. So increases on the expense side, such as a social worker, guidance, what did I just say? The truancy person, interventionist, etc. Offset with revenue on the other side. But on the expense side, it's about $1 million increase. And the majority of the rest is salary and benefit increases for our professional and support staff.
And to me, this recovery plan and the investment we're making there is the most important part of this budget. We know we have some room to improve anyway, and then we've had 2 years of COVID, which has increased absenteeism. We had an extended period of remote learning. And so kids are behind, and we know the kids who are the most behind are the kids who started behind. And so these investments in the intervention, and the other things Julie mentioned.
Tutoring, counselors,
Therapists. Yeah, we've got an increase in the behavioral piece. So those are all the really important things to try to help support those kids and get, just as a starting point, get them back to where they should have been if we had not had these last couple of years, and then continue to improve from there over the long term. So so those are the key, key areas from my perspective. If Joanne or Peter like to add anything there? Yvonne?
So what's different this time around compared to what we were looking at the first time around? I know I wasn't at the informational meeting that was the first time around. That was another meeting, but anyway, so I guess I'm asking, have you heard anything from all three towns? What was the issue as to why it didn't pass, or what's different today?
In terms of hearing specifics from folks, we had a couple of one-off comments. I would say not anything that we could say that's definitely the pattern. Unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of feedback. I don't know if anyone else heard a lot of things, but there were some comments around, particularly that scary 9.6 or whatever percentage increase there was, and I understand that. That was eye-catching. I think when we all saw the budget for the first time, we were shocked a bit too. And so we've been trying to, as we get into the tax rate piece of this year, trying to make sure people understand that it's because of a lot of these increases I just talked about, particularly the recovery plan, which is funded partially by the state, and then the state increased the property tax yield, which is part of the whole tax calculation. It was kind of their way of lowering taxes by using state money to subsidize local districts, and so that went up substantially. So our tax, our spending goes up 9% in that first budget, but the yield went up 10 or 11%, or right around there. So it actually got us to about a break even. But I don't think we were able to maybe explain that well enough. It was still just, the school's spending a lot of money. Which we are, there's no doubt. This is a hefty budget here, but I think this is the time to do it because we have the funding from the state and the grant funding, and it's when we need it, because this is when our kids are struggling the most. So back to your original question. Sorry. What's changed? The biggest one, we did reduce a position in Highgate. That's probably the one that's going to be felt the most of the changes there. Julie, do you want to comment on that one?
Sure. Actually, we reduced a teacher that was a 1-year only position, and then we were having conversations and looking at class sizes, and we didn't need to keep it for an additional. We would have had grant coverage as well for that. The other piece is there are a few positions that have been vacant for a few years, and the board's discussed that. It's like old home week being back home. Hello. We eliminated one of those positions that we just continuously can't seem to fill as a shortage position. And we've been operating without it for a while. So we did reduce that. Some other teachers have told us they're retiring, so we made some adjustments. You know, when a teacher who's been here for 30 years retires and they're making a certain amount of money, we typically replace them with a less experienced teacher, so there's savings there. We made some of those adjustments. And I think those would be the big, we also had to add, right? Because even though we're supposed to have all the information from the state before we go to our March vote, they still, after all of the budgets were adopted and ballots were printed, they still said, oh, by the way, we're changing this number or we're changing this information. So Laura actually had to make adjustments that, you know, taking some revenue away that we were told we were going to have, and then they said we didn't, changing those equalized pupils. There's going to be a lot of changes with equalized pupils in the next several years. There's talk about that percentage spending of equalized pupil change on the ballot being taken away just because it's going to be very volatile in the next several years. But what's really a challenge with that is, you know, our budget went down, our spending per equalized pupil went down almost 3% last year. And so then, because we made some increases mostly in salaries, then it looks like, and it jumps right up again. And it's this yo-yo. It's not actually doing anything for the high spending schools to stop spending more, but our low spending school districts trying to just make some gains so we can pay our teachers a little bit. You know, that when we try and make those gains, which the board has tried to do, that percentage number that we have to have on the ballot is really hard. And yeah, it's a hard thing to have on the ballot. We still spend much less than in other school districts, certainly than the state average. Our proposal is well below what the state average is for this current year. And, you know, Maple Run spends like $2,000 more per pupil than we do. And it's fair. They have more students, but not twice the students. So we are trying to make those adjustments so that we have high quality teachers that stay. And
was it fair to say that some of these people were probably not, without pointing fingers, I mean,
Sure.
not quite educated enough about the budget, and they just scared by the number?
I think that happens a lot, don't you all?
I think that, to your first question, Ivana, why did people vote the budget down? Well, that was the $40 million question. That's what we asked the first night, and I don't think we have all the answers, but it was a very close vote, as you know. And, you know, we had a rough year. I mean, COVID and, you know, a lot of people upset about masks, so we have no idea why they really voted the way.
My sound is on.
Sorry, I'm very sorry. Sorry, Robert.
Tell
Can you
Robert.
There we go.
turn it off, please?
I'm gonna stop my video because I don't have great service for some reason.
And your
And the
sound.
volume.
So I'm very sorry.
Sorry.
So, yeah, but we listened, and, you know, as Julie pointed out, we made some pretty significant cuts, and they don't even look as significant because other factors came in that ended up raising our, you know, lowering our revenue, you know. So, you know, we worked hard to, you know, give a lot of credit to Laura and Julie working on this, and, you know, I think we have a really good budget, you know, and I just hate to see what will happen if it gets voted down again. I really just strongly encourage people to support us because, you know, like Devin said, it's a struggle with what's been going on the last few years, trying to get students back up to where they were, and to his point, that's not good enough. We want, you know, we've been wanting to improve scores and students' access, you know, for years. So, you know, unfortunately, that's where we are right now. But
I guess the scary part for me is that usually on the second vote like this, there's less turnout. what are you gonna get for a turnout?
Right.
You know, like, is it gonna be the ones that are really against, or, you know, it's.
We're upset about a thing,
Right.
Yeah.
not even necessarily, yeah, I know. I struggle with that too. I know one thing that I had heard, which is when we talk about the budget and we lead with the tax rate after the CLA application, it looks like, you know, we have different tax rates for each school. And that's something I think we need to do a better job of explaining, that, you know, our tax rate is the same for each town. It's gone down just about every year, and it's going down another, what, 7.5 cents? But the CLA gets applied, and that has to do with how well houses are selling in Swanton and Highgate and Franklin, and that's not the same housing market in each town, so that's what makes a difference in our tax rates. But at least in this version that everybody works so hard on, even after CLA, all of the tax rates will be going down. And I just would encourage you to talk to all your neighbors about that.
Devin, may I respond? I know I'm not a Franklin resident, but we are at a meeting. Just would like to share a couple of things in Swanton. I think in Swanton we have a village budget, a town budget, and a school budget. And I think when the voters go to the polls, they look at the whole thing. So if either one of the other groups needs something really big, it impacts the vote in Swanton. The schools were always the largest. So I don't know what happens in Franklin and in Highgate, but if you go there, you know you have only so much money in your pocket to pay taxes. And in our case, either the town or village really has a jump because they have a big capital thing. Then people start thinking negative, and usually they think of the school because I think there's a belief that if you have a big budget, then you must have extra money. Thanks. But I had a little story that kind of surprised me, but it shouldn't have, because I think this board and boards in Vermont have said for years that the legislature really fouled up when they made certain wording to be on the ballot. And that's that equalized pupil increase. 2 years ago, everybody should have loved us because we went down. But when you do that, the next year you have to take it and make it up if it doesn't come. So anyway, there's a couple of young men in Swanton that do little odd jobs for me. And maybe a week or so after town meeting, one of them said, Mr. Collins, I don't know if I'm going to be able to work for you anymore because Dad says we're moving. Oh, you're moving? I thought you liked it in the village. Dad said he can't afford a 9% increase in taxes. So I went over and talked to him the next day, and he said, it's right there, Don, it's right there. 9%, my taxes are going up. And I called him by name, and I said, no, your taxes aren't going up 9%. Based on how the village and town play out, your taxes may even go down in Swanton. So, to me, and I've talked with legislators, and some of them get it, and some don't want to get it. As long as you have to put that in there, it's a sensitive number, particularly for a district like ours, that we didn't want 9%. We did not want 9% in our budget. So I think that some way, if we could get that out of the, we can't take it out now because it's legally up there, but some way so we can put the focus on how much did the budget actually increase and how is that going to impact your taxes part still negative. So that's the one takeaway that I really got direct contact on. Yeah. That people, and these people are people who are attentive to goings on in the village. They're not people that never ask questions, but they were sure. Dad said 9%. No, he's not touching that. So I think we're going to have the same battle next week, but I hope we can get over the hump.
Thanks, Don. We have 5 minutes left for this session before we jump into a regular meeting, which actually has some time on it in case this question and answer session went over, but
Just a quick question that I'm going to add for MVU. What are we looking at for any changes for trades?
So, yeah, this is one we've been looking at quite a bit. Julie, you just met with or talked with the folks at the tech center, right? And
Yes, we talked with the State Director of Technical Education, not last Friday, Friday before. MVU has a regional tech center, and, you know, our students go to the Northwest Tech Center. Some actually can go to Enosburg if there's a program there that the tech center doesn't have. MVU is only allowed to provide diversified agriculture, and that's what we do. We are not a tech center, but we are approved for diversified agriculture as a standalone program. We're the last one in the state. It's called Comprehensive High School. There used to be about 4 of them. I'm sure there were many years and years ago, and then it was down to 4, and now it's just us. So that's the only program that we're allowed to provide. And we are always talking, I just this morning was on the regional advisory board with all the tech centers and us. And we just did a comprehensive regional needs assessment. I should be getting that information soon, but we really want to make it and improve our ability for kids to go to the tech center. We do have actually more kids than usual are slated to go next year, which is a good thing, because we need kids to, I mean, honestly, find a plumber, see if you can get one that's under 60, right? You know, I honestly, there are not people to do things, and they're good paying jobs. But we do get a lot, we do have the ag welding, right? And so we actually get a lot of kids who get placed because of that training. So they get some good job placements right out of high school with that too. And we're tracking that information. But yeah, we know, it's
Just something that like the schools have taken consideration is that the federal is trying to change the law for truck drivers to be able to cross state and country line at 18 instead of 21. Because currently it's 21. And just people who are interested in that occupation,
yeah.
it's a very good paying job. And it's...
And
anyway,
adult
I'm not saying
education
it's
has
forever.
just added that program.
Okay.
They couldn't do it over in St. Albans because where are they gonna have trucks?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So I think they're doing it in Enosburg, but you know, we can partner with Northwest Tech and provide more adult education opportunities. So that's an area for us to investigate. We can either partner with them or we can provide adult, you know, but they have a whole system in place. So honestly, it's really about the access for our kids and families and, you know, adults. But our students can do some of the adult programs too. I know they do that in St. Albans all the time, but yeah, that's a good example.
Sue, Richard Green. Richard Green.
Green, yes.
The only question I have, and it is concerning the tech centers. I know the MVU students aren't allowed to go to the St. Albans one, I know, until they're juniors. Well, we've lost them. So when are we going to change that so that we can get our students even, you know, at 7th grade level, or that would be great,
Right.
but as a freshman, if they want those programs, building trades, electrical, plumbing,
Right.
Something to do with agriculture in Enosburg or trucking, when can we get them in sooner? Is the state going to help us get our students to these programs a little sooner before we lose them?
Right. That's more of an issue between the schools in terms of scheduling and programming. So that's something that we're talking through as an administrative team about prioritizing that and giving more opportunities to 10th graders. Yeah.
See, there are schools in the state that have what they call pre-tech.
Yep, they do.
And I've worked with some of them as a consultant, but not all of them have really bought into it. In some ways, because they don't have the space, you can't get the faculty, but you'll find if you went to the 13 or 14 how many tech centers we have, there are some that have pre-tech.
Well, anyway, thank you all for your time and efforts.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for having these in the towns. I think it makes a big difference. Thanks.
Thanks. We'll get organized for our regular meeting now then. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:34. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next we have correspondence, visitor, and public comment. We broke this into two sections today, just because we had a budget Q&A session right before this, and we wanted to give some time in case that ran over. So we'll start with general comments, and then we will have some budget-specific comments, questions if there are any. So, any members of the public like to make a comment? No one here in person, anyone online? Seeing none, okay. So, same question specifically about the budget. Any questions, comments? Anyone online? All right. We'll move on then to agenda review. Anything for us today?
No, I don't think so. I did add something to the agenda, but we want that, so it should be.
All right.
Should be all set.
No agenda amendments. Next, we have approval of the minutes from April 5th. We have a motion to approve those minutes. Peter's the first. Rennick's the second. Any discussion on those minutes? Peter?
I apologize if these aren't the correct minutes, I think they are, but I just barely got to check these today, so there's just a couple of comments. Call the meeting to order. My copy says Don Collins. Did he call the meeting to order?
Do you have the March?
April 5th.
So April 5th, okay, so, yep, that's,
We'll make
thought I
that
was late.
adjustment.
we'll change that.
Oh, I thought I was late and I missed him calling it to order or something.
And approval of the March 22nd minutes. There's nobody that's seconded. It was left blank.
Okay, we'll find those. I have those on my,
Yeah, I do.
Julie has them, I didn't bring my notes.
And the last one I have is under MVU administrative updates. Mr. Hartman's explanation, grade 8 students to join the JV varsity team. So they're not joining the varsity team, correct?
Right.
So it should either be the JV team or spell out junior varsity if it's not JV varsity.
Gotcha, yep.
Thank you.
I have one too. I think it says under proficiency, I think it says Jen Bailey.
It should be
Jen Bailey,
Yep.
B-A-I-L-E-Y.
Okay.
That's why I missed it, because it was there, it was just under Bailey, rather than Bailey.
All right, any other adjustments to the minutes? All right, thanks. So, all those in favor of approving the minutes with the adjustments mentioned, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries 7-0. All right, administrative reports. We have elementary administrative reports today, and I have not established any kind of order for you guys, so it's, we'll just go down the table here. Chris, would you like to start?
Sure, absolutely. So just a few highlights from my report. Our new teachers, year 1 and 2 teachers, spent some time with Tina Bugren on April 7th, and Tina is someone that we've been working with for prior to my arrival for quite a while, and that's really appreciated, and it feels really supportive to our new teacher. She focused on critical content the last time she was here, and one of the nice pieces that has come out of that work with Tina is that her conversations with our new teachers aligns really well with our supervision and evaluation system, the Marzano framework. And so a lot of those conversations that they have with Tina in those opportunities, she was with us for a whole day, are really easily and readily extended back to the conversations that we're having with teachers when we do their supervision and evaluation. So that was a great thing that happened recently on April 7th. We are getting ready for SBAC testing, the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium testing, which is given in English Language Arts and Mathematics in grades 3 through 6. And that's a pretty significant undertaking with the number of students that we have, both from an instructional perspective, preparing students to take tests in the format that these are given, and also from a technology perspective. So our tech folks have also been working really hard to make sure that everyone can sign on and access the portal. And for our students that have particular accommodations such as text-to-speech and those kinds of things, making sure that all of our tech support is ready to accommodate that testing. So that's been a large undertaking in grades 3 through 6 recently. Our Crossroads students sent two teams to the Junior Iron Chef competition at the Champlain Valley Expo on the 2nd, on a Saturday, and I was able to join them for that, which was a tremendous amount of fun. Something that I feel really passionate about is student leadership, and one of the really fun things about that experience was that they practiced, of course, a lot at Swanton with their 2 teams and their 2 recipes, and being able to see them kind of work on their collaboration skills and communication in that process was really exciting. And then when they go to the competition, they actually are completely separated from the coaches. And so there's a blue line that you can't cross, and the students are on the other side, and they're really on their own with extremely minimal coaching. So it was really fun to see them in a situation where they had become really confident in their skills and their problem-solving skills, and they were able to work through some things without the help of an adult, which is always our goal, is to scaffold them and give them the skills to work through those things on their own. So that was great. They did chuckle at me a little bit, just as a funny story. Of course, I had my camera. And I inadvertently stepped over the blue line to take a picture, and our I assure you our Swanton students are honest to a fault, and immediately gasped about that. And then when one of the judges said, are you a member of the media? One of our students spoke up and said, yes, the Wednesday Weekly. And so they immediately said, oh, that's great, come on in. And so we were co-conspirators in getting the pictures that I wanted at Junior Iron Chef. So that was a lot of fun. We are gearing up for our Principal's Summer Reading Challenge, which I'm really excited about. We have ordered almost 5,000 books for our students. That'll give our students between 6 and 7 books a piece. And our 6th grade classes are working with me to put that together. So we have some great canvas bags that they're going to be sorting the books into. And a postcard will go in each one of those bags. So when students do some of that reading over the summer, they'll write a little bit about what they've read and mail that back to me at school, and we'll put those on display for when students return in the fall. So we're excited to be thinking about how we're continuing to support students over the summer. I mentioned in my report that Crossroads is expanding their grade levels that they're accepting for the summer. So for the first time, 1st graders are being allowed to enroll, and that's really exciting, a nice way for us to expand the opportunities that we have for our families. So those are just a few highlights, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about my written report.
So your young chefs, if they're ever needing to try out any new recipes, we meet the 1st and 3rd Tuesday every month. So.
Excellent. I'll make sure that they know for sure.
Oh, we meet in Swanton next.
That's right. That's well, I appreciated being the beneficiary of all of the iterations of the recipes. All of it, for sure.
Thanks, Chris. Justina, did you have anything you wanted to?
No.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, with the students practicing the testing, how's that going? Like,
It's going very well.
when I say how's it going, I mean like performance-wise.
So some of the practice tests that they do get feedback on those assessments. And one of the nice things about the current format of the SBAC testing is that the dashboard that teachers have access to gives them instant data about the performance of students.
Oh, that's great.
And so we're seeing that our strength definitely lies in math so far on those assessments. And so the nice piece about getting acclimated to those tests is it helps when it becomes time to do the real thing. For sure. So they do get that data back, and students have used that data. They not only, we have access to the aggregated data, so we can look at the trends that our students are performing in, and also students have gotten some individual data so that they can set some goals when it comes to taking the actual assessments.
Well, that's great, because kids play Wordle and all that other stuff. You'd think that they'd like taking the test now that they can get some feedback and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
That's great.
They're taking it very seriously,
Yeah,
which
that's wonderful.
is incredible. Yep.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
All right, Yeshua.
All right, well, it's great being in person. I know I didn't make the last one because I was at Waddington, but it really is wonderful to be in person. I usually try to start with a little bit of a funny story. So we had COVID in the home the first day of mask optional wearing. So I had to continue to wear a mask for about another 2 weeks roughly. And so I was going in one class, it was the first day my mask was off. And a student kind of looks at me and he goes, huh, weird. And I was like, weird? What do you mean, what's weird? Your face. It's just weird, huh? I was like, it's what God gave it to me. That's what I'm working with. I think he meant to say it looked different. Not expected. I'm not sure. You be kind tonight. So that was fun.
I think that.
Yeah, I have to think that. Really similar updates to Chris. We are, I say, almost hiring season round 2 because we had a couple positions that we knew had resignations, and then contracts came back. We had a couple more, so we're definitely in hiring season round 2, which is always busy and stressful, but one of my favorites. I really enjoy meeting people, getting to know them, having them come in and see kids and teach or model lessons for us, so that's been good. And we are moving a couple of candidates forward, although we're still very early in those stages. As a school, we just finalized our master schedule for next year. So you have a committee of about 7 people that represent the building in different areas, and we start with asking feedback for the current schedule, what folks liked, what they didn't like, and then we always say like their hopes and dreams, magic wand kind of thing. And then we created a schedule based on that feedback, put it out again, and only had a few people that had suggestions. So we feel very good about the schedule we've created. And after the break, we will start the placement process. It's really important that we try to create some balanced groups, and that in our school, how we do is the teachers of the current grade make balanced groups for the next grade. And we do have a scaling system where they actually on a post-it note kind of range the kids behaviorally, academic, reading, writing specific. And then teachers create the list, and we plan a night for everyone to come in after school. We look at the lists that were submitted, and they officially submit it to me to actually place teachers with the list of kids. So that's always, again, an exciting time because we're looking just to the next year and how everything's playing out. We also are still in the crux of our HVAC system beginning to be the work being done, because it actually is starting next week. They are starting to actually put some of the conduits outside by the cafeteria so they can really start doing some great work. They are able to also do some of the duct work over April break, which is going to save us a week in the summer, which I thought was great from Eric, who's the engineer, because he's, like I think any engineer, is worried about the timeline for the summer. So it was nice that he's able to kind of push things back, so that way we'll feel a little better about the summer, because I definitely want to make sure we stay on track, because we're going to come back at a certain time, and I hope we're ready for it. We're also getting ready for SBAC, so we're doing very similar things that Chris reported about practicing, getting ready, making a schedule, and especially for some of our kiddos, they have not taken the SBAC, a couple of grades, and so we're just really making sure they're feeling comfortable with the process, because especially for a 3rd grader who takes it, it really can be overwhelming, and so we really want to give them a lot of practice in hopes that when they do take it, they're feeling good about themselves and feeling confident enough to just physically take the test beyond the actual content that's expected of them for their performance. We also are beginning to plan all of our end of the year stuff, which again is very exciting. We're finalizing field days and graduation, and we had our first graduation meeting with 6th grade parents, which was wonderful. We had probably about 35 parents come in, which was great. And so we can really start talking about their celebrations and us preparing them for MVU, so to speak. And the kids are going to Mary Poppins tomorrow, our 5th and 6th graders, which I'm very much so looking forward to. So I think it's going to be great to have all 3 of our towns coming into the assembly and seeing Mary Poppins. And I know we all, I think, pretty much plan on popping in to see how things are going. So that's really great. And just summer planning, again, just like Chris said, we have lots to kind of hammer out, especially with HVAC things going on in the brick building. We have a lot of very specifics of where can kids be, where can they not be, and again, exciting to be planning for it, although I guess sometimes it feels like the school year has ended, but it's not ended because we're planning all these things. But other than that, things are going well at Highgate.
Thanks, Joshua. Any questions for Joshua here?
The new HVAC project, and you were, very involved in the facility meetings we had, trying to decide, what projects, and that's what we ended up with. Just wondering, your feedback from teachers and community, are they excited about this project, or how?
Yeah, from the folks that have reached out to me, yes. Specifically, I can't think of one community member who read it in the paper and actually called and just let us know they were very excited about the work because they knew it had been a long time, that kind of stuff. So seemingly, I haven't really reached out to anyone for feedback, to be honest, but for those that have, and staff are definitely very excited about the change.
Good.
That's for sure.
Rick?
I was first on. Hey, Joshua. I just want to ask, what is the SVAC testing thing? I'm not super familiar with it.
Oh no, absolutely. It's the Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium. Very fancy word for SBAC, right? It's really our standardized assessment to be able to say, I would say nationally, although a lot of states have actually stopped doing it. They take reading or a writing, I'm getting confused, a math, and then they have a literacy performance, and one is writing and one is reading and answering questions. And then they get scored, and then that's what we report on to the state.
Do parents get feedback on this?
Ooh, how so?
Well, do parents get feedback?
They get testing results for
They
their
get the
students.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
absolutely.
I thought you meant like feedback on the actual thing itself. I'm like, I wish we could. We don't
No,
get
I'm
feedback on
just
that.
do they
But
get
yeah, you
testing
get a
results?
score report.
And is it, like, how is it like a comparative thing, so like we can see like what this school does compared to other schools?
Yes, yep. We get comparable numbers of schools within our district, and then a state score is what we can see how we perform according to the state.
And how many times have we done this before?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it's every year for, I mean,
Was it, when did it come into, was it 2014?
All the VCAPs.
Yeah, I was
Before-
gonna
This is
guess
Vermont's
13.
high stake test.
Yeah.
Before this, I
Before.
think it's about 2014. That was the first year. Before that, we had something called the kneecap assessment.
Yeah.
So,
And where do we place on average?
every school is different, really. But we have schools that don't do very well, and we have schools that do very well, depending on the subject matter.
And we don't have very recent data on this. Because they skipped it one year with COVID.
Okay.
And then they still haven't released last year's scores, right?
Nope, they're embargoed.
So we've got
so-
2 missing years.
So the test is done, or the results, it gets
Right.
sent away, we don't see them right away and they get sent back to us?
It's actually an online test, but yes, so it's all online.
And we haven't seen like the last few years?
2 years ago, there was no test.
Okay.
Last year, our kids took the test, and individual
We got the results
Yes.
pretty quickly last
Yeah.
year, but they embargoed them so that we couldn't share them publicly.
Right. Individual families have their own child's
Yes,
results.
Correct.
they got their
Individual
own
families.
child's results.
But in terms of a presentation to the board, which we typically do every year, where we say, here's how third grade did across the district, and here's what third grade looks like at the state level, we're not allowed to do that, because the state has embargoed them. I think it's basically because everybody was in COVID.
Right.
They don't want, they released a statement that you can't
They said it
identify
wasn't-
trends, or it's essentially not valid because.
Or
the-
reliable.
Or reliable, because of the conditions under which kids were learning last year.
Will it be embargoed for this year?
Oh, gosh, I hope not.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so
But
either.
the kids take the test in the spring, and then we are able to share those results typically in the fall.
And it's just 3rd through 6th grade.
Third
Yeah.
through 6th grade. No, also 7 and 7, 8.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, sorry, I was thinking from our last.
So, yeah, my daughter just took them in 11th grade, and as I grow in wisdom, I have to think that they're a terrible assessment.
Oh.
Because the students, especially by the time they're in middle school and high school, they figured it out.
because it's not part of the grade. There's very little incentive for them to even care about it. And the school, we've talked about like, it can't really be part of the grade because they don't get the results till they're in the next grade several months later. So it is what it is, in my opinion, and I just think it's kind of interesting. I used to concern myself with them, but I think some of the brightest kids have got it figured out. That this is a standardized test that means nothing to them personally. It means a lot to a school perhaps, or the people in a centralized Montpelier or Washington DC. But I think the reality of it doesn't mean much.
And what do we use it for?
Well, we're required by the federal government to have to have this test that we report out.
It means a lot to me.
Yeah.
It means a lot to me, but try dealing with a teenager who I have no defense. I'm like, you're right.
But pride, I mean, surely.
That's what I was gonna say. That's one of the things when I go around and talk to each class, and I try to tell them all the reasons why it's important to do well. And one is about school pride and community pride in your school. And I talk about how we use the data. I say, hey, we sit around, we look at this data till people are pulling their hair out, and to see what is it we need to work on, what can we do better to help our students learn. So I tell them, if you didn't try hard on this, we might be working you on all these other skills that you already know how to do.
Maybe we should be treating it like athletics, because they take pride in the athletics. Maybe they'll start taking pride in the achievement scores.
Yeah, I just don't think it measures intelligence.
Oh, no, and I know they're saying that.
Okay, but I mean
I really stress with the kids about this is our action plan, and we base our goals as a school, some of the things on this data and what we think we need to work on, and really how it can help us help instruct better.
Yeah.
I think it might be effective at the grade school levels. I just don't see the value of it at the high school levels with kids, because they've got it figured out.
I think it's a delicate balance, right? The two, because if you focus on it too much with your high expectations and the meaning, there's a lot of kids that have test anxiety and get very anxious and cry on test days and don't want to come to school. And then there's kids that take it very seriously. I think it really runs the full spectrum of that test on what it looks like for kids. So there are kids that love that stuff, to go in, have a different routine, a different in the schedule, and sit down and be alone and do it. And then there's some kids that just kind of sometimes can melt under that pressure and need a lot of extra. So I think that's just the great debate on those types of tests anyways that have been around for a long time.
We like to see it as a piece of data, right, that we have to do, so we like to make it as useful as possible, and we do a lot of action planning in determining what next steps are. But it's not the only data we look at.
Well, I was just asking, it was new to me. I didn't.
Yeah. No, I get it.
I was like,
I know.
can I just open this up?
Call us on these acronyms too, because we use a lot of them.
Yes. Anything else for Yeshua and Highgate?
So Julie, or maybe, it seems like we've moved from your report to testing, but anyway, we get individual score sheets. Do we get scores on each individual student?
Yes.
Is that a separate sheet?
Yes.
Or is it just a cumulative sheet?
It's separate.
Separate.
Okay, so all this board has to do is develop and pass a policy that every transcript that's sent out of the school will have an attachment of the test results. Okay?
Well, a copy does go in their permanent files.
That permanent file means nothing to a 15-year-old.
Right, but as Toby's saying, right, with their transcript for college.
Just if you're going to college or you're going for a job and they need a transcript, attached to that will be your profile on the SBAC.
So make the motion.
I'm not going to make a motion, but I don't think it's a bad idea.
No, I think there's some.
Many years ago, we used to do that with the ASVAB. Nobody knows what that is, but it's still around and it's a great test.
Yes,
Terry.
You know what that is? You're old enough to remember that? Did you take
Don't you
it?
get me on those old things, but yeah. I just remember that.
Terry, is it testing or Highgate related?
It's Highgate.
All right, let's do it.
I just wanted to say thank you for the when you provided the slides from the training the teachers were getting.
Yes,
And I
yes.
found that really enjoyable, you know,
Yes.
and it being
Yeah.
about hope, and I thought it was really important to bring that up because it was great for all of us, and to realize how teachers have to deal with so much in that social emotional learning, and how their approach makes such a difference and has such an impact.
Yeah, and it's started a really profound conversation about how the work we're doing can have such a big impact. And Joelle's just very good at what she does
I
in
could tell.
general, but you just feel good walking away.
It seemed like
and
it from-
with meaningful strategies, honestly,
I
that you
felt
will
good just
actually.
watching it.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't even there. But also you got a Friday weekly going on.
Yes.
Which is great. I bet the community loves that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, thank
So,
you.
Mr. Chairman, I did raise my hand initially before we went off to comment on, this is a statement about the building project.
Yes.
And I'm very pleased to hear that everybody's working together. I think maybe a month or two ago, you remember I said it's sure gonna be your job to make sure the staff all gets to work. Because it's very easy on a construction project, whether you're a paraeducator, an after-school person, a custodian, to see that something like this gets in your way, because we've always done it. So
Yeah.
I'm really pleased with what you're saying tonight is that everybody's on board.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's easy to sabotage these projects when you're on such a tight time constraint.
Yes.
A week is a long time if you lose it.
Yes, it is, absolutely, yeah. And just communication is key, because
That's
they
good.
don't know what they don't know, so we're trying to make sure we communicate as much as possible.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, any last questions for Heidi?
Yeah, just so thank you. Actually,
Yeah.
it's good to find out and to learn. I was just curious about that because I like the ideas like that, and so for parents who are like new, do they know that this is going to be given and had, and like are they aware of it?
Yeah, I think the families that have it know it's coming,
Yeah.
but for new families, you've not gotten the letter yet, no.
Okay. So
But
there's
I've
like-
not
so there's like a
literally put it
letter,
out
so-
there yet, no.
Okay. No, just because so I have 4th grade and high school, so I'm just
Yes.
I like that. I like the idea of measuring things, and I do actually agree that testing is important, right? Like in the adult world, like it happens all the time, and I've seen a lot of young adults who I know are very bright, not able to test, and it affects. Speaking of the ASVAB, I cannot tell you how many people I've worked with, they cannot pass it, just based on the environment that they're put in, and test anxiety is a real thing, and so I'm kind of curious to see, like, well, if we know it's a real thing, like, how far back does it go when we start getting them used to it? Because usually it comes from having not seen this or been in that, and so I like that idea, and I'd be happy to hear a lot more about it at how that goes when that's finished.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share, and I think part of the anxiety comes from how we approach as a school, and even how teachers approach the fact that we are taking this kind of test. And like Joyce, I think we truly try to promote we do well in everything we do, and this is another thing that we're gonna do well on. And then we have little systems, like we even have an SPAC pep rally, where the K through 2 all are assigned to another classroom, and each room comes through, and we hoot, and this year it's medieval themed, so that would be exciting. Hopefully have some drumsticks we can gnaw on. But I think it really is all about the approach of how you're doing it, and really trying to promote we want to do well.
Yeah, but I would also say it's okay not to do well, and
Yes.
to learn from that.
Right.
So, you can't succeed if you don't fail.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yeshua. All right, Joyce for the Franklin update.
Well, gosh, I don't know if there's much left to say at this point, but I always find something. But you just said that, I just bought a new t-shirt for the chess club, and it said, "I never lose, I either win or I learn." And I really like that, because we used to say, you know, who wins, and we never said lose, we would say winners and yielders. And now we're saying winners and learners, and our older kids are always teaching or the more experienced players are always teaching the younger kids, you know, in chess. And I just really like that, you know, don't always, you're gonna win or you're gonna learn. And when you test, there's always things you're gonna learn. And when we talk about test anxiety, that's one of the things like our guidance counselor's been addressing right now with a few kids and with actually a whole class. You know, and really learning how to deal with that at a young age. Anyway, so I'm going to talk any more about SBAC, even though when you said about people liking to take SBAC, I'll never forget we had a little girl once in 3rd grade that at the beginning of the year they had things that they couldn't wait for that year. And a 3rd grader said she could not wait to take SBAC. And I told her parents, I was like, I love this, really. I never even said I couldn't wait to do SBAC. Anyway. So right at our last board meeting, we were just finishing up our professional development with Leah Mermelstein, the writing consultant. We had our last couple of days here in Franklin. That has just been the most wonderful thing. We're looking at feedback right now around all the ways that teachers have felt that that's really helped in their unit planning and in their instruction, and really looking at next steps, how to continue that progress on our writing. We had our in-service day right after that, half day in service. We spent that afternoon looking at math performance tasks and how kids had done on that, K to 6, and really looking at what the strengths were and what the needs were. And again, seeing if there was any trends, any certain things. Was it more calculation that was a problem, reasoning that was a problem, and what we want to do as next steps. Then it was time for March Madness. I'm proud to say we're probably one of the few schools that does teach bracketology. We had all the brackets up out on the wall, thanks to Heather Digby, and we also do math with it. But every grade was assigned to teams in the tournament, and it was kind of cool this year because actually the 2 teams that ended up in the men's finals was North Carolina and Kansas. North Carolina, Kansas, right? Yeah. And the 6th grade and the staff were those 2 teams. And we do a game against the 6th grade. So it was kind of cool because we were like a precursor to the real thing that night. Unfortunately, unlike the football, as I said in my report, where we really whipped the 6th grade, this time it was horrible. They really beat us. I was so embarrassed I did not get 1 basket. I wanted to go have a whole redo. But anyway. And then every grade went down and saw how many baskets they could score in 5 minutes. And it's just a really fun annual event that builds class spirit, school spirit. And this year we were able to have the whole school come down and watch the game. Unfortunately, we didn't do that with football. They watched the video, but they saw us get trounced in the basketball instead.
So you were on the learning side.
Thank you, Peter, yes. I was a learner. Then actually today we had the meetings with the 7th grade team teachers to discuss our 6th graders going over to MVU next year. I just always feel so good about that, and a chance to talk with the teachers about each child that's going over and what their strengths are and what maybe some of their challenges are, what are really good instructional strategies for certain kids, and just really trying to help with that transition process. And as Yeshua mentioned, Mary Poppins tomorrow, then in May there'll be the Step Up Day, and we also had our middle school lunch bunch today. And kids were just asking really good questions at the lunch bunch meeting too, about electives and opportunities. And Yvonne was talking earlier about some of the trades things. One of the kids was asking, like, I want to be a mechanic, like when can I start doing that? And just making those connections already. Really, really happy that we have all of our certified staff returning. Yes, yay. Unfortunately, except our 1-day-a-week art teacher that we finally got is going to be moving, she and her family. And so we are going to be looking for a 1-day-a-week art position. So I think that's probably going to be tough to fill. And we're really going to miss Kathy and her family. So even though I provided all these snacks here tonight, we've been doing a lot with wellness at our school. That's why we can have all these snacks. That's right, it was oatmeal cookies. But I did put in my report, Alita Boomauer, our school nurse, is our wellness leader for our Path to Wellness, and I wrote some of the activities that she's organized for us. And then we also have our wellness committee, and they've been organizing activities. We just got done Zumba. Yoga's starting, and so those activities I think are just a really great opportunity for all of our staff, so that we can eat all these snacks. And then I did want to mention, we work really closely with the VFW around a lot of activities, making the cards I mentioned before for the veterans on Veterans Day. The VFW each year provides us food baskets for families at Thanksgiving and sometimes at other holidays too. And they have a Patriots Pen Contest We do not help the kids with it, all we do is tell the kids about it. And 3 of our kids, the number of kids participated in it, and 3, Molly Reed, Bella Barnum, and Jillian Wagner got first, second, and third place, and they each got a monetary award and a nice certificate, and it was just really nice. They took the time to do it, and I told them, I said, it'll make your worth your while if you do this. And it was just really good experience, and Charles Magna came and presented them their awards, and that was just really nice. Upcoming things I just wanted to really quickly mention, the Penny War is going on, and that is to benefit the food shelf, and the kids are already having a lot of fun of it. There's a plaque out there, and this year's 6th grade actually won back when they were in kindergarten. So, but they're getting totally sabotaged by the younger grades. Because if you put the pennies in, that's positive, but if you do silver or dollars, it subtracts. So, so again, we do math with this. It's a fun activity, but there's a lot of learning about negative numbers and positive numbers, and you hear first graders saying who they're going to sabotage and learn what that means. So we do a little vocabulary. I tell you, the stuff we teach here. But I did want to mention, besides the Penny War, but I talked about this, the Middle School District Music Festival is coming up on the 29th and 30th of April, and that is for students in Franklin and Grand Isle County who have been invited to that. And I don't know if any of you have been, I'm sure some of you have been to those district music festivals. And this is the middle school one, and the concert for it is the 30th at 2 o'clock at MVU. And there'll be 5 students there participating from Franklin, and I'm sure there's students from Highgate and Swanton at it too. But it's just always a really, really good event. You know, the high school music festival and the middle school one, and this one is being hosted at MVU, and it's just a really nice thing and a great thing for the kids. So, and I am done. And please, one other thing. I don't know. I did look to see if you had to say. Oh, I have to laugh. My husband used to really pick on me for always having. I always used to say one more thing, one more thing. So one more thing. When you go, if you have executive session, please take some of those snacks with you when you go. Okay. I appreciate it. And now I'm done.
Any questions or comments for Joyce and Franklin? Joy?
Just to go back on the transitioning from,
Yep.
the 6th grade to the
Yep.
7th grade, and you guys have been talking about that, because it brings back memories for me, not great memories. But I know because of COVID, I believe we stopped switching classrooms, like the 6th graders would stay in the 6th grade and 5th grade would stay in the 5th grade, like, or have we gone back? Because when I came here, we would switch classrooms just to get us kind of prepared to what it's like to switch classrooms when you go to Missisquoi.
Yeah, we do that.
We're going back to switching again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When it was really, the teachers just switched for a little while,
Yes.
but the kids are switching again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not that, it's just too.
And I have to tell you,
Still.
one of the things that most impressed me when I was at MVU as the middle school principal was how well the kids from Franklin adjusted at MVU. So they really do an incredible job.
Oh, yeah. We do.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm not that other kids didn't too, but it was always like, wow, these kids from this little small school go,
It's
and back
scary.
then it was like 1,200 kids. And it was like, wow, and there's so much done now in terms of transition. And that was one of the biggest things we worked on years and years ago, was really adding so many activities around transition. So it's way better than when you were there.
That's good.
I did have a question, Joyce.
Yep.
It was sad to hear that you're losing your art teacher.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a difficult position to fill 1 day a week?
Oh, okay. I think so.
I guess,
Yeah.
and I don't know, but there may be somebody in the Swan area that was an art teacher at once upon a time. I don't know if the license is lapsed. I imagine you have to hire somebody fully licensed, even though it's 1 day a week.
Well, we have to try
If
for that.
it doesn't work that way and you're in August, let me know. I'll let this person know that there's a 1 day a week.
Yeah, if you would, that'd be great, yeah. It's even, in 1 day a week, even at, coming from Swanton, the price of gas and stuff now, blue.
Yeah.
But yeah, anybody might know, just send them my way. Thank you, Dawn, appreciate it.
All right, thanks Joyce. All right, we'll move on to new business and start with Julie, the MVSD recovery plan overview.
Right. Our recovery plan's not new business, but this is where we decided to put it. So I wanted to give an overview of where we are, and particularly as we're talking about budget, I can highlight a few positions that are in the budget. I'm gonna do the whole share my screen thing and see how this goes. I have multiple things that I want to share. This is part of a presentation, and I did put it in the board drive, that presentation that was given last May, where we were sharing with the board the whole development of the recovery plan process. So it started in 2021. We had a very prescribed process from the Agency of Education. I have no idea why it's showing weird way up there, but we had regional meetings with the state to figure out what the process would be. We completed an assessment, so a big part of this was a needs assessment, looking at not just state testing data, but also local data information to drive the development of this plan. There was a toolkit that we went through. We finished it up. It all had to be approved at the Agency of Ed. And they were all different phases. Phase 1 was the needs assessment, phase 2 was the development of the plan, and phase 3 is what we're in now, which is implementing, revising, and evaluating the plan. And we have twice a month meetings as a recovery team. And that team includes early childhood, the Director of Student Affairs from MVU, Yeshua, Joyce, Justina, Jeff Benet from Indian Affairs, Celine Riendo, who's our truancy expert, Tan Hayes, Director of Student Services, Kosha Patel, Jen Disorder, Joan Lumbra, who is a retired Swanton teacher who is doing the data compilation and evaluation work for us, and me. And so I'm going to share with you a synopsis version that is on the website on the curriculum page. And so I'm going to share that. Because the actual plan is 41 pages and it's all connected and it just keeps scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and we use it, we put in our notes and all of those things. So it's a living document that's shared with the Agency of Education. So I'm going to go to the minutes because I think that's the best place to pop that up and then share that screen. Okay, my Zoom thing, what am I, sorry. All right. I'm going to make it bigger so that oh no, I need to go away. My apologies, everybody.
Excuse me.
No, it's just everything disappears when you click on it. All right. Now I want to make this a little bit bigger. Oh, it's not easy to do. So this plan is a synopsis where we have simplified some of the strategies, but it is the same plan in essence. We have 3 domains in this plan that were required by the Agency of Ed. The first domain is social emotional learning, mental health, and well-being, and that's where we're putting all of our goals and then specific activities and then strategies around that domain. The second is engagement and truancy. So both parts of student attendance, not just having kids come back to school, but also are we keeping learners engaged so that they want to be here as well. And then the third domain is academic achievement and success. So our first goal is to provide professional development and leadership teams to support universal PBIS and social emotional knowledge. And our end of this June goal is to gather data to understand how students perceive the school climate, as well as through the PBIS school climate survey. So we're taking that data to really get a sense of what students are perceiving in their school. And of course, we're also looking at truancy data, et cetera. But it's a single year, so it's kind of hard to, we can compare to other years, but this is our first year of implementing some of these strategies. So this plan will, of course, roll into our next version of it.
So,
Go ahead,
Julie, just for folks who may be seeing this for the first time, could you explain why we have a recovery plan?
Thank you. We have a recovery plan because we were required to have one by the Agency of Ed to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. And the whole idea of the plan was predicated on there would be no pandemic in 2021-22, and that didn't happen. But it's been ongoing work, so it will be multiple years. But we were required to do this. We also had to tie any of our spending of our federal grants, the ESSER grants, had to be tied to these strategies. So it gets at set the needs assessment, set the goal, implement strategies, assess how well it did, and then tie federal funding to that. And then that way we are always assessing how well our spending has impacted students. So for example, one of the activities, and I've highlighted in yellow things that are in the budget. We also have lots of things that we're doing anyway, strategies that don't cost extra money, strategies that are paid for through the grant but they're not budgeted, like sending teachers to particular professional learning, things like that. But so for example, because of the challenges with mental health issues coming out of the pandemic, we have added extra contracts with some mental health providers where we were able to get them. We have contracted with an art therapist. We've employed a school social worker. We are next year employing a board certified behavior analyst. If we can get 2 of them, we will do that. Those professionals are people that are nationally certified to analyze student behavior and develop plans around that. We often contract with our mental health provider for those services. They can't, it's an expensive contract and we don't necessarily always see them as often as we need because they too have staffing issues. So we're trying to build our own capacity there. One of the hopes for that position is that we would have this individual or individuals, if we're lucky enough to get 2, we have 2 in the budget, to train our paraeducators, to train our behavior interventionists who are paras who work specifically with kids with behavior goals, and then also train and work with special educators and other staff that work with students who have challenges so that they can improve their skills as well. We hired an HHB investigator. We had a lot of hazing, harassment, and bullying investigations that increased, honestly, student behaviors, particularly at the middle high school, increased. And a lot of bullying investigations needed. Administration were doing maybe 7 at any given time. So we added a position there to help support with the legwork and the investigation portion. And although administrators are still the ones that make the decisions and determinations on that. A student support position was added in Highgate that the grant covers, and hall monitors. So these are positions that are in our recovery plan. We are assessing how positive an impact they have had for our students, and they are also offset with grant funding, but they're also in the budget. So we also hired a truancy and engagement specialist. The board, oh man, it's moving on its own. The board saw a presentation from Celine Randall on the data she's been collecting. We have contracted with some online tutoring as well. We've contracted with the Stern Center. Those aren't highlighted because those are flowing right through the grant. Those aren't in the budget. We have put in the budget some technology Chromebook leases that we believe are necessary both for engaging students and keeping current with use of technology. We hired a PLP teacher at MVU. That is in the budget and in the grant. And that's to increase student engagement and understanding their learning and their personalized plan toward their goals.
Julie, what does PLP stand for?
That's personalized learning plan. And that came out of Act 77 in 2013, I think. It was a part of a requirement that students have opportunities for different paths, not just I'm going to earn credits a certain way, but there are options there. But it's the most important part of it is really having students understand their learning and its impact on what they want out of life when they graduate from high school.
Is that something that's done with like guidance counselors or teachers or like everyone?
It had been done with guidance, and it wasn't as effective because it's something that you would meet with your guidance teacher once in a great while. It wasn't as much as a living, breathing piece. So we hired this position so that we could have somebody shepherding 7th grade, beginning in 7th grade, and then meeting with students as they get older and help them develop their plans and stay connected to their, to that learning, to that process. So it's somebody who's sort of teaching it to students because it's not a natural thing for students to reflect and to make those connections. So
Does that stay with them throughout the course? Their
yes,
progress with
the
MVU?
law is that they should have a PLP from 7th through 12th grade.
And so does it? So this is new, correct?
It is, well, it's fairly new. It is fairly new. It started about 8 years ago.
Okay, so we do have seniors that have graduated that have had.
Yeah.
Does it like match up?
No, what's difficult about, and I'm not the PLP expert, so I'm just prefacing it, okay? Some school districts and high schools have taken PLPs, and that's like, it's a big central part of their learning experience in schools. Others have had a sort of, yes, students have them, right? And so for some students, they may have more of a living, breathing document, but most students just have it. It's something they have, but it's not been all that meaningful or directly tied to their learning. And we wanted to change that, so we hired this teacher.
So other districts have this position?
Some have positions, some have it done in different ways. Some of it is done in every single class kids take. It all depends on the, there's no one way to do a PLP, of course, because we live in Vermont. So some schools do it. The district I was in before had a very different way of doing PLPs, and each school actually had a very different way of doing it.
Julie, how can one person what is adding one person going to do with all this? I'm just curious. I mean,
well, I know that we have slated to have an update on how well this is going. Jenny's going to, and they're going to meet with the teacher to see how things are going. She's just getting started with this process. Of course, COVID didn't help, right? But the intent was to teach students about it while they're young and then follow those students up.
Gotcha. So every student has one?
Every student should have a PLP, yes.
If we could remember back to our last meeting, I think last week, the concerns that people raised was one of the reasons in the legislature, and it didn't have anything to do with proficiency back then, but it had to, some schools were not naming valedictorians and salutatorians, and people said, well, my child was #1, but they didn't do rank order. If you stay around long enough, it comes around and around and around. Now it's proficiency learning. But this position should help with that, because if you start working with students in the 7th grade, and they know that they're going to get a transcript, whether or not it includes your SBAC, I don't know, but if you get it, if you try to kind of reinforces in the students' minds, then when you're a junior or senior and you look at had a 3.3, it's not like you just woke up one morning and you're reading about it. It's supposed to be kind of a learning process, so hopefully it's working. It has a lot of potential to really help, and it was to support guidance people who were doing drug and alcohol and all that.
And I know we need to move on, but there's a school where like the parents have to at least go once. And it usually happens when they become seniors. Like the parents need to look at the students' PLP for the past 4 years, 5 years, depending on the school. So, and I know that's a crucial thing is how do we get parents involved? Well, in order for your student to graduate, you know, the parent has to be involved in this 1 15-minute meeting so that you can see your students' PLP because they're putting time into it.
And it's definitely a new position. We really want to ensure that it's going in the direction that we want. Make sure it's, we knew that this was a strength for them,
Right.
so we wanted to increase that.
Last thing, will we get a chance potentially to talk with it? If there's only one person for all of MVU,
Yeah.
is there any way we could like hear like the feedback and how it's going at some point?
Yeah, we have, it's actually on our future agenda items on today's agenda is to get a PLP update, so it's high on our list.
Yeah.
Maybe I read it and I forgot I read it.
Oh, I know, you probably did.
No, what I think we want to do too is combine, we want to get information from guidance director about kids going to college, about students in apprenticeships from hopefully Richard Barnwin, who's our work-based learning coordinator, and we want to have that input from our PLP teacher as well. And so, because it's all connected, really. So just to jump in here more, and again, we will be reporting at the end of the year, we will have compiled all our data to see how we're doing, and then this rolls into our continuous improvement plan, which we have to approve every year. They have to be connected, so a lot of these strategies you'll see in the continuous improvement plan when that comes up as well. But we have also added intervention positions. We have added an instructional coach. Actually, we're paying for an instructional coach because one grant is ended and another is picking up. We've definitely increased tutors and summer offerings. Chris mentioned how we're just adding a whole grade level to Swanton Crossroads programming, and I expect that to be a lot of kids. And I'm excited about that. Yeah, the summer programming is fun, but also there's a lot of tutoring and learning as well. And when I say increased tutoring, that includes special ed tutoring, all kinds of tutoring that happens. And one of the important things to mention too is one of our strategies in here was that we wanted to ensure that we retain our teachers. And so while we don't put increases to teacher salaries as a strategy in any of our grants, the use of all this grant money coming into the district has created additional capacity in the budget to increase teacher and staff salaries without, while having the revenue to offset it. It's more of an indirect offset, but it's definitely a piece of this. So we will be coming to the board later with information about, whether we are increasing our academic achievement, if we're meeting our goals of increasing 5 to 10% in those scores. We're not there yet. We've looked at the mid-year scores, but we want to look at the end of year. Now that we've got kids coming to school a little more regularly, we want to make sure that's happening. So this overview I put together just for you to see, and then also see the connections to the budget. But you should be seeing the assessment part of it, and then that drives our next year's plan, because this isn't going away. I'm going to stop the share.
So Julie, I have a question if now's a good okay time.
Absolutely. I took it off the sharing, but please.
So like a lot of these are positions, obviously, right? So one of the feedback I've heard, and not saying I necessarily agree with it, but one of the concerns I've heard about with this COVID monies was a budget, raising a budget that will all of a sudden be for local taxpayers.
Right, I absolutely
So-
hear that.
So what would you say to that about a lot of these positions? I mean, they're not term positions, right? We're hiring them on an annual basis like everybody else, or, I mean, just. can you-
Here's what we're doing. I think my message to the community right along and to administrators has been, it's great that we can hire all these tutors and all of these temporary positions, but we can't then just fire everybody later, right? So we are funding existing positions that we have. Where we are adding things, they are either temporary or here are some of the positions that are on the list. The interventionist, board certified behavior analyst, we hired an additional nurse, that's not on the list, but it is there, a social worker, etc. Again, that's about, what, $820,000 in salary that is in the budget there. The message has been, if we're gonna keep these after the grant goes away, then we have to plan for it. So either we're going to eliminate something that's not effective to keep the effective thing, right? So if it's an important strategy to have an additional interventionist, then what is there that we're gonna use, whether it's different grant funding or whether we're gonna eliminate things in the budget that are less effective or not helping.
So you said future years, like what do we look like? I know on the budget discussions, we talked about a cliff and trying to.
We don't wanna have a cliff in '24,
So
right?
we're thinking 2020.
25 would be the year, so we
20.
have these 2 years to really plan.
Okay.
And I always work with administrators to use attrition. So, for example, we added an HHB coordinator. At the time, said, you know, if you want it to be more than a temporary contract, then this person who just left, we're not gonna fill that position. Because now you're telling me this is more important. So, those are the kind of strategies we're employing. And we're trying to keep those, you know, the social worker, the truancy coordinator, those are important positions that I think we're probably gonna need. So we're gonna look at how we're gonna find the efficiencies and savings so that it's not a cliff in 25.
Is there going to be some sort of a measurable way at that point to like gauge the effectiveness of like having all those positions and what that will do,
Right.
so that we can say, you know, we've had this, it's made XYZ difference, and therefore it's, you know, we need it to stay. Like,
Right.
do we have like those things in place to be able to do
And
that?
that's part of what the recovery plan evaluation is. So every strategy we have, some of it is professional learning strategies, they're not all this overview I highlighted positions. So there's lots of other strategies that have nothing to do with people. But yes, we have to measure, you know, is our truancy improving? Are we meeting more students' needs? Are we reaching more families? Are we having more meetings to help kids get back? Some of it's not just a matter of percentages. Some of it is qualitative information. Do we have, how many students is this social worker meeting with? I think it's 60 kids on a regular basis.
The state is requiring that as well.
Right.
We have to report to them on that.
So some of it may be, I may not have individual outcomes on students who are having art therapy, but we know how many kids are accessing that and whether they're experiencing success in school generally. So, yeah, it's an important part of it.
And I guess the comment I'll make, Toby, I think you're spot on, that is a concern, you know, long-term if we put these in now. You know, we also have to recognize that right now is when our students need the most support. That's the purpose of the recovery plan, is the purpose of the grant funding being available right now. And so, it's, you know, right now this is timely, the budget vote's in a few weeks, folks will be able to watch this meeting before that, and so I just hope everyone understands that, you know, a big chunk of the increase we've got in this next year's budget is directly related to this student recovery plan, targeted right at student achievement, student learning, student outcomes, and so you know, I just want that to be known and to be recognized, and I hope folks will support this investment, and then we know we'll take on the challenge of mitigating the long-term impacts over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, Mark.
I think it's part of that inequity we've been talking about, or that the problem with the language in the article with the 9.21% also, because not all school districts have included those positions, those ESSER funded positions that they find valuable, and they want to be transparent into their community about how they're spending these funds. They're not putting them in their budget necessarily. They're funding them with a grant right now, and then they're going to worry about that later if they want to keep them. And we were trying a different strategy. So that 9.21 it's not fair if we're including those positions and other school districts are not. But in 2 years they might. We're 7 point something.
So now, yeah.
Just make sure.
Yeah, sorry, yes.
The tax rate's going down, yes.
Any other questions on the recovery plan, comments? Seeing none. All right, thank you, Julie, for that. The next item on the agenda is a discussion of the board resolution process, tying into a goal for the board of increasing our advocacy.
So the process itself is that this board should discuss, should you want to engage in it. And I know, Toby, you had brought it up as a possibility, and you had an idea about statewide teacher contracts as being something that was of interest to you. One of the things that this board can do is decide on a topic area, have that conversation, draft the language. I put a link into the Vermont School Board Association resolution submission page, and you essentially say what it is that you think that the state should be doing, and maybe the resolution is to lobby the legislature to make changes to statewide teacher bargaining for a statewide teacher contract. I'm using that as an example because it was one that was brought up. You would need to vote on it. You'd have to work, maybe the board goals committee would work on it and bring it back to the full board. You'd have discussion about it and then submit it to the Vermont School Board Association by, I believe, June 15th. So
I think so. I just happen to be on the resolutions committee.
Yes,
but
that's right. You know more than I am.
Well, I don't know more. I chaired that committee for a few years, and I just still didn't know a lot about it. No, I really did, but I think what happens sometimes, I mean, I enjoyed being on the committee and chairing it for a few years, but sometimes people put forth resolutions that are solutions.
Yeah.
And I remember some lengthy conversations with school board members saying, you know, raise an issue due to maybe increased health insurance costs that have been taken away from our school districts deciding the cost for health insurance is done what the state negotiated. We're feeling that there should be, the next step should be a statewide salary schedule. That would be a resolution, that be investigated. But for somebody to go step 1, 2, 3, this is what you need to do to implement it, frustrates the committee because they want to take and be respectful, but to go to the legislature with a resolution saying, we want you to do this, this, and this, gets a lot of pushback. But no, it's a great activity and some good things certainly have come out of it. A lot of people try to work on resolutions that impact school costs and tax rate, and you know, everybody wants to have a lower tax rate and impact, so, you know, it's good. I really think that Toby issued tonight a resolution, and I don't think probably will come out of here, but if other schools are having the same issue with high school students, and I'm sure they are, maybe we need to ask the agency to look into ways where we can, I don't want to say, impact high school students on the importance of SBAC. As I said, that may be a little way out, but it's really a good process, and it can. And if it's a salary thing, certainly that's one too. You know, I don't know how much we follow individually, but because I'm on the board and we seem to talk about it frequently, the whole health insurance thing really has become a boondoggle. In that there's a board, and they never solve it. They go to mediation, and they never mediate it. Well, never, it's been around for 3 years. And then it goes to fact finding. And I'll never forget the meeting where somebody announced who the pathfinder was, and I thought, oh my Lord, we used him once. He is so off the wall, he's an economist. And sure enough, the school boards really got stuck to them with insurance costs. And this has nothing to do with, do teachers get insurance and do it. And so that's a biggie, and the only way you balance it, in fact, and I know I'm rambling on here, but we always used to talk about total compensation. You know, what is it to a college employee? Salary is one thing, but if you're getting a $25,000 insurance plan, that's pretty significant. I don't know if it's 25 now, but.
Yeah, what's that one, Sharon?
But anyway, so thanks for bringing that up. So if people have ideas, policy committee, and there's a lady in the agency who coordinates that, and she's excellent, excellent. Sandra does a really good job, so if you called in, and you probably would get Terry at the office there, and ask for Sandra, who works on resolutions. She would help the policy committee or anybody working on, kind of go through the steps. I can't think of her new name, even though I've worked with her for 3 years, but it's Sandra.
Do we have an opportunity to join other school boards that are sponsoring? I thought I'd read them before and there's multiple school
They
boards.
have been, you don't want me to, they have been, but then sometimes what happens is one school feels a little bit more important than one component. We had one I worked with for 6 weeks, Essex School District with Brenda, Jeannie Collins, and Mike DeWeese when they were in those. And one wanted to put the first part of the resolution with this wording, the other one wanted to be secondary. Well, I told them, forget it, submit 2 resolutions, I'm all done. And they did, but, so yes, it can have more impact, Toby. It's a great idea if people will really work together. And I think if you look at the 2 school districts, that was not a marriage made in heaven when you think of rural Brandon and Essex Junction still sits, it's also city, they're going to be. But thanks. But I think if Franklin County schools work together, I think it could be, yes.
Can I ask a question related to this? I remembered when they brought forward the resolution to try, it was something about private schools, and I see now in the updates from them that they're doing something, it's gone to the committees, but I didn't quite understand what's really happening.
Well, there's a bill, there's probably more than one bill, but there's some legislation around addressing tuition, state public school tuition dollars going to independent schools, and trying at least to get them to have open access.
That's, yeah.
Right? So, and there are lawsuits filed in Vermont Supreme Court with people wanting public school dollars to go to religious schools, and because of the way the Supreme Court is. So Vermont and Maine are both test states for this. So there's a lot of debate about whether the legislature should make changes now or should they wait for the decisions to be made. I'm not really, Brian Campion is the Senate Education Chair. He is very strong in wanting to do something no matter what the courts do. If they have to go back and change something after the fact, they would do that. As somebody who is a special ed administrator, I have strong feelings about public dollars going to schools that can say, you're not a fit for our institution.
We can't serve you properly.
We can't serve you. You don't meet our mission.
And so that's what they're trying
And that
to
can
stop.
be coded language for, we don't believe in educating, we don't want to educate
But
your child or
we
your
don't
young
want to spend
person.
money.
Yeah, but we wouldn't mind taking your money. And there are also aspects around, because we don't send any students, we're not a school choice district. So I do not follow this as closely as those that have, religious schools in their community, and they have choice towns that don't operate high schools. They're living this every day.
Yeah,
But yes, a perfect example. That was a resolution last year, and there's definitely been movement in the legislature.
Thank you.
If something that is near and dear to me, and I think many of you, if we were talking about a resolution, a good resolution would be to ask the legislature to work with the Agency of Education to develop plans that allow secondary schools to implement technical center programs. There used to be something, that's how MVU got in, they're called satellite centers. And they were a satellite, I think there were, I don't know, 7 or 8 in the state, and it was ag. But if we could have satellite centers at a local high school, at MVU, through a survey, if we found there was a significant interest in the building trades, we could have a building trades as well as the one in St. Albans, or we could work together. Maybe they would do exterior, maybe we'd do interior work. So there's so much can happen with technical ed and career education, and our governor is behind it with finances. But sometimes the agency is the one that shuts the door.
Well, and we have a lot of statutes and regulation around technical.
Well, you better
The
believe
state
it.
board rules are very lengthy about technical education. And yeah, we are the last comprehensive high school that is allowed to do, that's a freestanding diversified act, and that's what we're.
It's called protecting yourself.
Yeah, so I think that in next steps around that, I mean, this is off topic of resolution, but paying a lot of attention to this information, as you know. There will be funding for tech ed changes that happen pretty soon. Following that, we will then be looking at the model. And in some places where it's more population dense, it makes sense for the model to look the way it does. And then in some places like Franklin County, it might make sense for it to be a county-wide program and kids could go anywhere and we could all have programs where it made sense, right? So those conversations are coming after the finance part.
That's good, thank you.
Yeah.
So I know it's been mentioned a couple times that maybe this go through that goals and policy group. Terry, is that, would it be okay to have people send ideas to you if they have
Sounds good.
particular items, and then we can discuss them in that group?
And then the committee will do the work.
And I think Julie, I think there are about 20 resolutions on the books. I know we have every 2 years we go through and read every one again to see if it's still relevant.
Yeah, there's a list. I looked at it.
You may
It's an
want to look at the list to
ongoing,
get a sense
forever
of some of the
permanent
things
list.
that they've done.
Great.
All right. Thanks for that. Moving on, the next item is a teacher resignation. This is one where we'll make a finding for executive session to discuss a personnel matter. There will be action coming out of executive session on that one. All right, and next is old business, discussing the budget information updates and next steps. So, really, Laura?
Well, we started tonight with our first Q&A. Tomorrow night we are in Highgate, and Rennick is going to be there. Devin, you're going to be there.
I can't go Thursdays, but I could go tomorrow, so I
That'd
can
be
go
great.
Thursday.
Okay.
We'll be in the Highgate Library.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. And same kind of presentation, just what questions do you have? And Devin, you did a nice little overview of kind of the priorities that went into the budget. We will obviously be having our informational meeting on April 25th, the night before. Laura and I discussed, usually we have it a little earlier and then we record it, and then there's a few days where it goes out into the universe. We discussed that probably it's not a good idea to do another long video that people tend not to watch because it's long, but that we could take aspects of that slide presentation we're going to use on the 25th and maybe do 2 minutes on what is spending per equalized pupil? Why is it the way it is? What, just 2 minutes on that. 2 minutes on here's your tax rate information. And here's what it looks like after the CLA. Just 2 minutes on these are the big changes from one budget to the next. And push out maybe 3 videos that are targeted and 5 minutes long.
And folks are going to be receiving something in the mail as well.
Laura, please talk about the very simple process of producing this.
It's okay, it's going to help us, so that's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there will be 5,460 something flyers sent out on Friday to all the residents of Franklin, Highgate, and Swanton with that information, so.
Great, and it's got just overall tax rate information, so you can see the changes in tax rate down in all three towns. And then the adjustments that were made from the initial budget that did not pass, so.
I thought that flyer was really nice, Laura. You got a lot of information in there. I don't know how you did it, but it's impressive.
The downward here. And again, people don't get ballots automatically mailed to them, but they can reach out to their town clerk.
Yes, that's.
And request an absentee ballot.
Thanks, Julie. That's really important. I know I've heard from a couple people asking about that. If you want an absentee ballot, you do need to request it. So.
Are they available right now?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, they
They've
are.
been available, actually, there have been a lot disseminated already.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Can I ask why we didn't do the flyer the first time? Because,
We didn't mail it, but we did a flyer.
yeah, I'm just curious, I'm wondering in the years ahead, why would, I mean, how much, how much does it
It's gonna
cost?
cost us about $3,000, give or take, plus quite a bit of time, but it,
And the book goes out, I mean, the town book goes out, in
Not
most
mailed.
towns.
We don't mail it.
Mm-hmm.
It's available.
Yeah, but we're in the village, I mean, for Swanton anyway, we're in the, aren't we? We're not in, I guess I
it's
didn't.
available online or to pick up in the offices, but, town offices, but no.
That book is a lot, though. You know, I think as
Yeah,
a,
that would- the
as-
mailing
you
for
know,
that.
when you're going home with like 3 kids and practices and
Yeah,
I'm gonna pick this up more than that book probably.
But we have it right on our website,
yeah.
and we push that out. And of course, there are a lot of folks who like it, and they're used to getting it, and they go to their town clerks, they pick them up. We have them in the schools, we have them in the offices. So, yeah, we make a point of pushing
I
that
think
out
we,
as
we
well.
keep trying new strategies, Toby. I think we do a lot more this year and the previous years than we have in previous years. And if this works, then more than happy to keep
on doing it.
doing it. If mailing is what people like, then let's do it.
It's cause I know like Swan has the marijuana vote.
Yep.
Is that on like literally on the same ballot or there's
No.
separate ballots?
We have our own ballot.
Well, no,
Thank goodness.
I know
Thank
that.
goodness. It's a good question. It's, yeah.
Piggybacking it.
But when they go to vote, they can vote on our
They'll have
budget.
2 separate ballots. One will
separate.
be either town or village to vote on that particular item, and then they'll have a school district ballot that's yellow and not the same color as whatever the other town.
Maybe it'll increase the turnout in a good way.
I hope so. I worry about strong feelings about that issue, and the
Oh,
school
yeah.
is not in any way connected
Exactly.
to that topic.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments, questions on?
I would just make a suggestion that the day of the vote, however it wants to be done, sort of doing those little videos, but do Facebook Lives.
Facebook Lives on the day of the vote.
So a lot of people just forget. So most people are going to vote early, they'll already will have voted or have their ballots, and then the remaining people, they usually vote that day. But a lot of people who are busy or forget or just, you know.
So
Talk
send
about
out
doing an
events.
invite, creating an event, a
Well-
Facebook event. The live gets tricky because there are rules around, laws around what we are allowed to do on town meeting day while people are voting.
Okay.
Like we can't be outside the polls. I'm not sure how it would be perceived if you were doing a Facebook Live from the polls. There may be a gray area, but we could do an event.
I just was offering it because the way algorithms work, those get put in the front of people's
Right.
feed, so they will see them first, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's just to draw attention, like, hey, there's a vote
Go
today,
vote.
come vote, like, and then you do that a couple times. It just, a lot of people just will forget it's the day to
Oh,
vote.
absolutely.
I s-
We purposely, we hadn't spent money to boost our Facebook posts because, you know, it's an advertising algorithm, but we did with the information for these events that we're having this week. And we're going to continue to see if we can, as a district, have that boost so that some of our events and postings get increased attention and increases the algorithm, as you said, so that more people see it. We try and, I would really hope that school board members share like crazy, any of those things. And then we will purposely update the Facebook, either events or posts, as we get closer and on to the day. You know, don't forget to vote. Budget vote today. And we put things out on Front Porch Forum as well, but you can only do text there.
Are we using the message boards in Highgate and Swanton for the vote on Tuesday?
Go by the town clerk's office, we've got it up there.
Some are
I know
more
Highgate.
eager to help with that than others.
Highgate does a lot.
Yeah, Highgate always does. We might get signs too.
See if I can pull that out.
Don't know if there's time to pull. But even if
anyone know a printer?
So am I hearing that some towns aren't cooperative on the message boards?
It's not that they're not cooperative, I think it's an investment that they made and they have a lot of things that they're trying to get out,
Well,
and
the
so.
licenses are now not due, so they have that spot.
I'm happy to ask, I just think this is probably why maybe we might need our own sign. That's just my opinion.
I mean, I don't mind asking, but I'm not sure that.
No, we
I should
can
get involved.
ask
Yeah.
again for the school budget vote. I'm sure that will go up there. But yeah, for other items, sometimes there's a lot of
Oh, no, I see.
competition.
They are busy sometimes.
It's also a different kind of sign.
Yeah,
So
it
it's-
moves.
As you're driving through, if something catches your attention, you can't stop to see it.
That's why we need one at MVU.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll move on now to the next item, which is other business, new teacher hires.
So we have 2 teachers since the last, since our March meeting. We have 2 Emmas, Emma Ainsworth and Emma Rose Boyer, both classroom teachers. Going to Swanton. I believe one will be in kindergarten and one will be in first. Kindergarten first. I met with both of them. I actually spoke to the supervisor of one of their programs at either St. Mike's or UVM, who said, "Did you get Emma?" Because I really think she'll be a great fit for Swanton. So,
Yes,
we're
which
very
one?
excited. We're very excited about them both, and I think they're going to be very successful, and congrats to Justina and Chris for nabbing them. So, we will have plenty more next meeting.
All right. All right, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the hiring of the two teachers' name, Emma Ainsworth and Emma Rose Wright.
I'll make a motion to, approve the hiring, is that right? No.
Approve the superintendent's recommendation.
Approve the superintendent's recommendation for hiring Emma Ainsworth and Emma Rose Roya.
Second?
I'll second.
That's the second. All right, any discussion?
I think one of them must have been a graduate of our high school, maybe not.
We've had a lot of teachers that I've met with over the past couple of years, and one of the Emmas was definitely a Swan resident, and that's what's so exciting when you know that they're coming back to serve in their home community. It makes a big difference in the teacher retention.
She also subbed at Highgate.
And one worked at Swanton, that's worked at Swanton too.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question in terms of hiring teachers? And I mean, it's pretty competitive out there to find any employees, so
Oh, yeah.
finding teachers, is our salary upgrades helping at all? Or
I think so. I think it's helped us. We're not, all of our teacher contracts aren't due back until Friday, those that have asked for extensions. So, but so far, we have fewer teachers who are not coming back than in previous. We already had a large number of retirements, so we've already seen those numbers. So that's, we expected. Things have been hard the last few years. But in terms of teachers not returning, it's a smaller number, which I think is helpful.
that's really helpful.
But it is still competitive, and you know.
Thank you, that's helpful. I should have worded it that way, because that is what we're really looking for too, is to stop turnover. Great.
All right, so all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Is Steve, I can't see Steve on the screen. Is he
Sorry.
still here?
Yes.
Hi, Steve.
Steve, was that an aye from you as well? All right, so the motion carries 8-0.
I know.
Okay, future agenda items, so we talked about having a post-secondary outcome and PLP update, so we'll be looking to get that on there, as well as an SRO update.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we can get our, the SRO that works at MVU to come and give an update at a more focused meeting. I think that would be helpful. I don't think we're going to get the chief. He's busy.
All right. Future board meetings, looks like there is a typo on this one.
Oh, sorry.
Budget information meeting is April 25th at MVU Library, 7 p.m. There is an informal budget Q&A session tomorrow, April 13th, in Highgate at 6 o'clock, and then Swanton on April 14th. That's a little different format, right?
Well, they're going to be in the lobby, and Terry and Toby are going to be in the lobby. There's parent engagement stuff happening. People are on a route through the buildings. Thank you, Justina, for trying to make that work really well. We want to grab kids on their, parents on their way from one thing to another. So I think there'll be a lot of folks for you to engage with.
We'll be brief. As will be like the sign.
What's your spiel?
Yeah.
All right, and then our next regular board meeting is scheduled for May 3rd at 6:30 p.m. in the Swanton Central School Library. All right, so now I will accept a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter. So first,
I'll make a motion.
Rennick is the first, second. Joanne's the second. All right.
And we are including
Me.
Julie?
Only Julie?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
It's a long drive. Chris could stay. If you wanted Chris, absolutely.
Chris
he
is
knows an awful lot.
welcome.
I'm happy to stay.
Okay, inviting in Julie and Chris. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 8-0. We are in executive session at 8:07.